here's the article number 1. It's from a new company that I haven't seen on Twitter yet. They are called Torjoman or Torjoman. I don't know how to read this. The first thing that comes to mind when I'm reading this is Torbjorn from Overwatch. But actually this company is not Swedish because they have a lot of Arabic letters, words on the website. So I think they're actually somewhere in Emirates, because their footnote says a lot about Dubai translation and translation Abu Dhabi, legal translation in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So yeah, this is kind of confusing a little bit. Anyway, this company, they posted this article from October 22, and it's about in-house translation versus outsourced translation. What are the pros and what are the cons? I think I do have experience with both models, so let's see what these guys think. So here we go. This is not Shakespeare, but a fundamental question that is increasingly facing all businesses in almost all industries that aspire to go global. While most language services industry analysts believe that the question about choosing the right solution to do translation internally or outsource it is more about knowing your company's needs and what type of projects you have to manage, business owners still differ on the issue and usually voice different opinions about the best route to take. Before we decide to do the translation via outsourcing or in-house, let's ask, why would businesses need to translate their content in the first place? Okay, so I was telling you that this is a very basic article. So yes, this is a question that somebody new to localization would probably ask, but I hope that most of my listeners know why it makes sense to translate, aka localize the content. So in fact, this is their answer. In fact, content translation is a must for all businesses that look forward to reaching out to foreign audiences and expanding into overseas markets. To home in on these foreign audiences, the company needs to focus on the translation and localization effort that aims to provide these new markets with quality content in their own mother tongues and suitable to their cultural context. So, to get this done, your business has only two options: to create your in-house translation team or to entirely outsource the translation jobs. So technically this is not either or. I have seen examples of mixed teams. I think that like early Microsoft or maybe even Autodesk, they had their in-house team, especially for complicated languages like Japanese. And I'm not only talking about people who would normally be doing like marketing or sales or something else, but people who are actually kind of like a full-time translator, localizer, editor, something like that. But it's a critical language that may be important for your business, and you don't want to fully rely on external partner, especially if you're starting. It's like a big risk to just go public with a translation from someone that you don't know, even if you do like a quality check. But that's another thing that I was talking about many times here on this podcast, is that when we normally do translation quality reviews, we also usually just rely on like opinion of like one or two people. So yeah, it is very likely, I mean, what the fuck am I saying? It's not very likely. It's possible that maybe for you, like a combination could be the best, especially like if you're starting out. Maybe it's good to have someone in-house or someone that you work closely with. And I'm not talking about LSP, but more like kind of like a, I don't know, like directly hired reviewers that you would have like a close relationship with, or maybe they could be recruited among your actual users in the target markets. And then once maybe the people who do the translation, they prove their value, maybe that's when you can start to reduce your in-house translation team. So it's definitely not either or. Going back to the article, as to the question of which is better, in-house or outsourcing, let's rephrase it into which option fits your business. The answer, however, needs a little more inquiry that discusses the advantages and disadvantages of each option separately. So here we go. The disadvantages of in-house translation. Many people, especially marketers, believe that hiring and creating a full in-house team to do the company's translations internally is more convenient to them and to the company. Even though the idea seems a little idealistic, it actually has some pros and some cons. Here are some of the disadvantages. There's no doubt that your company's internal translators have expertise in only a limited number of languages. So, what about the other languages? Well, this disadvantage is kind of like a meh. Because like if you are able to find people for certain languages, then wouldn't you also be able to find people for the other languages? Disadvantage number 2, when it comes to finance, costs could soar if your company decides to invest in CAT tools and training for your in-house translators. Well, yeah. Yeah, but when it comes to the cost, I think the main expense would still be the people that you would hire internally. And by internally, I assume that they mean actual like full-time employees or maybe part-time. I'm not sure if by internal they would be referring to like a network of freelancers that you manage internally yourself versus having this responsibility moved to LSP. Number 3, disadvantage. Most probably internal translators will not be native. Why? So you will be limited of hiring translators who are using your target source languages as a second language. By this, your quality is definitely... What? I think there's a grammar issue here in the sentence. By this, your quality will definitely be affected and your reach to your target audience will not be 100% effective. Number 4, forget quality assurance as who dares to review colleagues. Well, these disadvantages are pretty shitty. I'm sorry guys from Torjoman, but they don't make much sense. Well, I don't know like why the internal translators would not be native. Like, are they really just talking about like asking your colleagues to do the translators who are not actually translators? If you're talking about internal translators, then it means they are actually professional certified translators. So they are actually most likely to be native in that language. I mean, like, come on, it's like 2019, so people from different countries live in different parts of the world, and you can also hire someone remotely. They don't have to sit in the office and be born in the country where your HQ is, so this is complete bullshit. And when it comes to number 4, forget quality assurance. Who dares to review colleagues? Well, I mean, come on, like if you're like building an internal team, then you might as well hire some reviewer. Well, probably they wouldn't have that much work. So here I'm actually stuck, yeah. Well, technically you could ask, depends on the size of your company. You could also ask people who are not professional translators, like what is their opinion if you have those within your company. And then of course, the best way is always to get a feedback from the actual market, from the customers, or technically you could have like a third-party review, even if it's like on your internal translators, because like, why not? Like, why would reviewing your colleagues be such an issue? I mean, the review is there to ensure the quality, so everybody who's working on translation should be open to receiving a feedback about that. So these disadvantages of in-house translation, I'm not so sure. To me, also, it's not about maintaining in-house translation team. The thing is that if you do maintain in-house translation team, at least for a couple of languages, then you're probably going to have extra overhead with somebody who will need to actually manage these people. So that's another thing to consider. Here come the advantages of in-house translation. So let's see if they do better this time. Some businesses, however, have a preference for creating an in-house team to do the company's translations, citing the following pros. Number 1, same location, fast turnaround, they say. Since your generals are on the same premises as all your departments, all documents will, so they say, get translated as quickly as possible. Yeah, technically. Yeah, I think that like if people are internally or at least working for the same company, that things can get done faster versus them having to be outsourced. But then again, technically, if let's say your company is in Canada and you're trying to build your in-house translation team just in Canada, then if you need something like urgently, then everybody pretty much works the standard 9 to 5 hours. While if you have partners, well, you could, as I was saying, you could also have in-house translation team remotely. So the advantage of having someone in different time zones, while it may be a bit challenging, is that sometimes you actually prepare the work or the content for translation by the COB, and then you just send it and it gets pretty much translated overnight, and then in the morning you just receive it, while otherwise you would need to wait that extra day. So okay, going back to the advantages. So faster turnaround, yeah, I would say so. Number 2, better internal communication is probably the most prominent advantage. Your in-house translators obviously know the ins and outs of their organization. Better communication amounts to higher productivity, no doubt. Yeah, so faster turnaround, internal communication, yes, I think so. Although, sometimes, like the internal communication is not about just, coming physically to someone's desk and asking questions, but if you have IM, like with your clients, or if you allow like instant messages between the freelancers and maybe the content creators, then you can technically reach the same speed and effectiveness that you would have with internal communication. Number 3, the advantage of in-house translation. Naturally, your in-house translators are constantly submerged in the company's business culture, and so have a better knowledge about your business's products and services, and each of them consequently looks like an expert at your at your firm's terminology. So this, yes, I definitely think is like a big benefit, especially if the translators are exposed to the product a lot more than if they were just like freelancers who are working with many different clients. So I'm thinking like if there are actually freelancers out there who are not considered like to be in-house translators, but they have their clients and they're kind of like really dedicated to them, that they know their business inside out, and at the same note or the same perspective could be also reversed, whether the clients who are seeking translations actually provide this kind of like not like a training, but really the information to their freelancers to really make them, I don't know, like know the business and the products and the services, the terminology, the culture inside out, so that the freelancers can then provide a lot better quality. And I think this is something that I will be able to explore once I get the content ready. Once I get the content ready. Yeah, because then I will pretty much control the whole supply chain. And by that I mean kind of like the whole content localization process and the cycle. So yeah. So the people that will be hopefully volunteering to translate content, my content, they will have the access to the content that I'm actually creating from the start, basically from the idea. So yeah, so the whole idea with the stream is that I'll have an idea about a content that I want to create, and I'll create it, and it gets localized, and the people that will be localizing it or editing it or whatever, they will be able to see the inception from the very early stage. And hopefully this will inspire some of the clients and the buyers of translation services out there to do a better job when it comes to localization. So moving on to outsourced translation. So the disadvantages are: your business will have no full control of time or work activity. I'm not sure what they mean by time activity, because people who are buying translation services usually give a pretty specific time restrictions to when they want to receive the translations. Number two, if you have a tight budget, using a translation service might be a bit expensive. That is probably true, but at the same time, if you have already a tight budget, then you most likely won't be able to go with the in-house translation team, because to me, I still would say that having or keeping an in-house translation team is more expensive than using LSPs. And that's the reason why most of the big clients that I work with, they kept kind of like reducing their in-house teams and relying more on the work of their translation providers. So yeah, if you have a tight budget, you might actually do better with some cheap or some LSP that could maybe, like, I don't know, help you with MT or just find some cheaper solution, because maybe you don't need like a top tier quality for certain markets, or you just want to test something, so they might help you reduce the scope of localization. And so then yeah, was there anything else? I think not. Okay. Disadvantage number 3: lack of information and specific terminology, especially at the beginning of the translation process. However, this could easily be counteracted by providing the translation vendor with the reference files that clarify the product service details and the goals of translation. Well, yeah, they already mentioned it as a disadvantage, and then they kind of like negated it right away. So yeah, I also think like lack of information and specific terminology is bullshit, because like you as a buyer of translation services, this is like one of your jobs to explain it, especially like, of course, if you're working with someone new to your business who doesn't understand it. And the same thing goes for specific Terminology, I think this is kind of like a collaboration between you and your LSP, and LSP should be, I think, driving the effort to create glossaries and maintain the terminology for you, and they would probably charge you for that, but who knows. The last disadvantage is different time zones between the company and the translation vendor. So this is like and that's all they say here. That's just like different time zones. That's such a bullshit. Like, you can of course find a translation vendor that is like in the same fucking building as you. So this has nothing to do. And as I was saying before, having different time zones could actually be helpful sometimes. And here come the advantages of outsourcing translation. So this section is the longest one, and I guess why, because this is an article from a translation company. So when it comes to the pros of partnering with a professional translation vendor, the majority of language services industry analysts and business leaders agree that your company, in this case, will be enjoying more than 50 benefits. What? However, let's for now mention the most prominent pros. Number 1, outsourcing your translation service to a professional service provider contributes to controlling costs, especially in the long term. I am not sure about this one. As I was saying before, I think what it leads to is lower costs, but when it comes to controlling costs, I don't think so. I have had a couple of personal experiences where the client doesn't know what they're using the money for, or even worse, the LSP is straight lying to the buyer about the money that they spent on something. So I think that you can definitely control your costs better if you have in-house team versus an outsourcing team who just sends you like a bunch of lines on an invoice, and then you need to figure out if it was actually used on something good or no. So yeah, if this is the number 1 advantage, I'm not sure about that. Okay, let's see. Second one. Number 2, outsourcing your translations would also be beneficial if you have too little office space to support your in-house translators. What the fuck? Like, is this serious? Oh my god. Like, how can that be advantage number 2? To save office space. Holy fucking moly. Okay, this is just poor article. Number 3. A professional translation agency usually has an extended base of selective translators of diverse language pairs and multiple fields of expertise. If you are translating a document into French, a native French speaker will perform the task, whereas an entirely different person will later translate a different document into Spanish to assure full adherence to your target audience's language and cultural nuances. This guarantees both top quality and fast turnaround. Music to the ears of clients. So yeah, this is finally the first normal advantage that I agree with. Like, one of the reasons to use translation agencies is that they are scalable and they have access to a lot more freelancers. So you don't have to do the legwork on your own and try to find people from scratch. And the last one that they point out, advantage number 4, translation service vendor will provide professional and efficient project management, which guarantees that the process is efficient and the workflow is optimally streamlined. Additionally, having access to a large pool of qualified translators will ensure that someone will be available to take on your project whenever it is required and submit it within your previously set timeline. So whatever the volume or the deadline of your project, rest assured that you'll be granted to receive your project in the agreed deadline. Well, A couple of things here. Translation service vendor will provide professional and efficient project management. So that's bullshit. Depends on, of course, your expectations and your definition of professional and efficient project management. But trust me, if I went to all the translation service vendors in this world, I'm telling you that most of them would not be efficient, or at least not what I call efficient project management. I'm pretty sure there are so many people who are still doing things through Excel sheet and I don't know, writing notes. Not that there's anything wrong with writing notes. I also like to write notes, but yeah, efficient project management. Trust me, I've met a lot of project managers in my life, and yeah. Well, you'll see, you'll see how I do project management, and then you can come to my stream and then you can make fun of me. Then they also say that having access to a large pool of qualified translators will ensure that someone will be able to take on a project, and whatever the volume or the deadline, rest assured that you'll be granted to receive your project in the agreed deadline. So that's also not very true. If you find some smaller agency, then they might have a certain pool of freelancers, but it doesn't guarantee that everybody they work with will be ready to take on your job, especially whatever the volume, so like if you're sending smaller pieces and then suddenly you have like a big one, then it's very likely that nobody will be available to pick it up, especially if you have super demanding deadline. And yeah, I think I was mentioning this in one of the earlier episodes, that one of the bigger translation vendors that is also related to a certain CAT tool, that their pool for certain languages that are spoken in East of Europe, their flexibility with these languages is like very, very low. So yeah. So yeah, that's kind of funny, because like I started by saying that the pools of translators are actually limited when it comes to smaller translation vendors or providers. And then I also mentioned that even the big guys, they struggle with flexibility. So yeah, I think it doesn't mean that there's absolutely like zero guarantee that if you use translation vendor, then everybody will just deliver based on your expectations. Yeah, I think the buyers and the clients need to be realistic a little bit. So based on this article, if you read this article for the first time, you're lucky that I'm here to bring you back to reality. But based on this article, you would probably have a very naive perception of translation vendors. And I'm not sure if I want to continue. Well, that's basically the majority, I mean the main content of this article. And then the article ends with why Torjoman? So it starts by saying it's an ISO 1700 certified language services provider. So whenever I hear ISO blah 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 whatever numbers, I don't even know what the fuck it means. I already said this opinion before. If like having like some fucking certification is like your biggest benefit that you can offer to me, then I would rather look somewhere else. What does it even mean? Let me try to look it up. ISO 17100. Translation. So fancy. Okay. So ISO 1700. Then there's column 2015. Translation services. Requirements for translation services. What? You buy this standard for 118. What is this? Swiss franc? What the fuck? So ISO blah 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 provides requirements for the core processes, resources, and other aspects necessary for the delivery of a quality translation service that meets applicable specifications. Application of ISO blah 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 also provides the means by which a translation service provider can demonstrate conformity of a specified translation services to ISO blah 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 and the capability of its processes and resources to deliver a translation service that will meet the client's and other applicable specifications. Oh gosh. Yes, please, no. Please, if you have any common sense, don't fall into this trap of these ISO certified people. They usually suck. Because all they have is their stupid certification. Torjoman has been over the past quarter century delivering first-rate translation, localization, and interpretation services to top-notch businesses located in Middle East and North Africa, who work in a wide array of industries, including manufacturing, technical, medical, as well as oil and gas. So, they house more than 500 native translators. Wow. Who are specialized in different industries to ensure the resulting content is immediately understandable to the target market. I'm wondering if housing them means that they are in-house employees or it's just their pool of freelancers. ISO certification, okay, fuck you, I don't care. Advanced technology. Let's see, what is their advanced technology? We at Torjoman always use the latest technology in translation, like translation memory. Wait, what? Oh, that's funny. Okay, we at Torjoman always use the latest technology in translation, like translation memory. So, translation memory is obviously one of the latest technologies in translation. Ta-da! Glossary and translation management system, and many more. We also believe to have easy and quick communication between us and our clients, so we designed an ordering platform at our website and mobile app to facilitate the translation ordering process to our clients. Okay, thank you. That's it. Blah.